Hi, everyone. Jen Hatmaker here, host of the For the Love podcast. Welcome to the show. What a banger we have today. Let me look at the clock. Yep, we went 15 minutes over our slotted time, which I knew from the jump we were going to do. All right, I'm getting ahead of myself. I love kicking off a new series. Every time I feel excited about it. Today is the very first episode in a new series that we are calling For the Love of Wonderful You. This is something I brought to my team a few months ago that I really wanted to do on the show. It's something about this time of year is when the wheels start rocking. Like it's March, a lot of things are kind of in motion for a huge chunk of our community. April and May are absolutely kind of gauntlet months as moms, and this is when we start going, oh, we're emerging from the sleepy slumber of the winter and feeling it. And so I didn't want that pace to pick up, that hectic thing that we do, without something from our little corner of the world. And so I was like, what can we do in the month of March to pause and to start asking questions about how deeply loved are we? How worthy are we as we are? I love these questions and I love them right now. And I'm bearing a lead right here, and you're going to see why by the end of the episode. But we are worthy of a beautiful life where no one is keeping score. And the thing is, no one is keeping score. That's a huge, profound part of our conversation today that I literally wrote down on a note card in real time. But that critical self, that inner taskmaster, that person that thinks everybody is paying attention to every single down we make on the field, it isn't even a real thing. It's not even a game, turns out. And so I cannot possibly have a better conversation partner around this conversation, because we have somebody so very smart, so compassionate, so honest and truthful that I sometimes just listen to her talk and go, wow, that you are just such a person of like profound depth. And I'm so drawn to her. We have the incomparable Amanda Doyle today, you guys. Almost all of my community knows who this is. In case you don't, Amanda Doyle is Vice President, General Counsel, and member of the Together Rising Board of Directors. Together Rising is a 501c3 nonprofit, and it is just a force in this world, just a force. Together Rising has raised over $50 million and given it away to people all over the world who need it the most. I have been a part of several of their campaigns, and the work of Together Rising is what literally is good in the world still. She used to be an attorney. She was a legal fellow with IJM, International Justice Mission, who I have also had a long-time relationship with. She specifically, when she was at IJM, worked on legal justice for sexual abuse victims in Rwanda. So if that's given you a little taste of her heartbeat. So Amanda is many, many things, but you may know her most from being co-host of the We Can Do Hard Things podcast. She happens to be the sister of Glennon Doyle and sister-in-law to Abby Wambach, both who I've been friends with for Glennon a really long time, and Abby as soon as she hit the scene. And I just love them both so dearly. I've had them both on this show too, and I've been on theirs. And Tyler and I have been on theirs. Listen, we just cross-pollinate, guys. It's because we believe in each other so much. And so full circle, finally, Amanda on the show. We we have wanted to have her for some time. And so if you've ever listened to We Can Do Hard Things, you know that she has profound insights into this whole conversation that we're going to host today. She is uniquely adept at breaking down negative messaging and accessing like inner worth and inner truth. Like really and truly, I just finished our recording, and I am walking away with one particular nugget that literally just shone a light on something in my own creative work. I honestly can't believe it hadn't occurred to me, but um, I this is a great conversation. By the way, if you ever want to watch any of these conversations besides just listen to them, we video record all of them. They're over on my YouTube channel. And so if you ever want to see Amanda, because even just watching her talk is like so highly engaging, and I can never tear my eyes off of her. I want to listen to every word she says. It's no wonder I made this go late, because I did not even want to stop this conversation. I had a million other things to talk about, but whatever, we fit it in as much as we could fit in for you, and you are going to love it. I think you're going to hear some pretty profound thoughts today. And I could not be more delighted to share my conversation with the stunning and wonderful Amanda Doyle. Hi.
Hello,
Welcome.
Jen Hatmaker. I love you for the love. I love your community. I'm so honored to be here. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
We love you too. We have so many, our communities are similar, tons of crossover. Like we share a lot of folks, a lot of women. And so I love that because we understand them, but also we understand each other. I swear to God, Amanda, like when I listen to you say whatever, just pick a thing, whatever you're talking about, whatever conversations, I am like, that person is wired almost exactly like me. It's weird.
My condolences, Jen Hatmaker. And I feel the same way when you were on, and I was like, well, we can just sit this one out because Jen is saying all the things that I would be adding to the conversation. So I love, God bless us.
Yeah, I know. And everyone who works with us.
But there's beauty there too, because I can see it in you. So I know it's also in me. So that's the beauty also of having people who think like us, because we're like, oh, I'm looking from the outside and it's good stuff. It just feels
there is a place for us. Yes. Exactly. Well, we know our own demons. Like we know what we're battling internally. That is outside of everybody else's purview, and kind of where some of the deficiencies, like I'm brain first. I'm an internal process. I'm a thinker. I deeply think things through logically. And I was in meetings, I swear, like on Monday and Tuesday with these fascinating, creative people who bring books to life in the world, like the best books in the world. And I'm sitting there talking to them and I am asking them all these analytical questions. And I am literally like, oh my God, wizard, give me a heart. Like, what am I, an analyst? Like, am I an accountant? Like, why? Help me be in my body a little.
Well, help me be in my body is a life question that is a good one to ask.
I'm learning.
I've been wondering about that myself.
I'm learning. That's new for me. I mean, I didn't grow up with one word of embodiment instruction into my ear. I didn't even know what that was. That wasn't a conversation anybody in my ecosystem was having. And it's not my natural bent either. My preference is to simply disassociate from my body. And this is simply a carrier carrying around my brain.
It is an inconvenient dead weight attached to my brain.
That's right. Yes. That's right. I mean, the level of deprogramming it has required of me to get in my my bones and my body and my heart is good work, but hard work for sure. I'm jumping ahead. I'm jumping so far ahead.
Okay. So I'm with you wherever you go.
I'm laughing so hard because somebody is listening. There's probably 5 to 8 people listening.
And we love all
who are like, would those those 5 to 8 people are just saying, would you introduce us to your friend, Jen? What are you guys just talking about? And because almost all of my community is like wildly in love with you and super familiar with what you bring to bear. For the 5 to 8 who just got the internet last week, they're new here. Okay, let's just start there. Could you just kind of do the 30,000 foot view for us? Like, this is my deal. This is where I'm at. These are my people. This is my thing.
Yes, I will
Yeah.
do all of that. So I guess the like kind of way that you'd write on a piece of paper is that I have worked with and for my sister Glennon Doyle for the past dozen years. Before that, I was a practicing attorney, and now I have the delight of also working with Abby Wambach, to whom she is married. And we have a podcast called We Can Do Hard Things and a nonprofit called Together Rising. And that community has raised over $50 million for folks who need it. And it's so ridiculously beautiful in the world. And so that's the one I'd write on the paper. But I wonder if it's like, in I was your producer sent me the theme of this
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
set of podcasts you're
Series.
doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the word, set of
There it
podcast
is.
series.
Yeah.
Yeah. We in the podcast world call that a set of episodes, a series. And I was like, oh, this is really something, because this is my struggle of my life. And I think that if I had to introduce myself in a more truthful way, it would be that I am a person who has a very strong life force. And sometimes that life force comes out at like a beautiful floodlight. And sometimes it like blinds me and I need to stay under the covers for way longer than is appropriate. I am 4 years sober from alcohol. I am always and forever going to be recovering from a lifetime of eating disorders. I have gone through a traumatic divorce and I am remarried, and I find love partnerships to be the most confounding part of life. I struggle with anxiety, and I also do not struggle with strength and pushing through, but I do struggle with softness, and I am not good at it in myself, and I'm not good at it, even in other people that I love, and that has challenged my relationships. And I just really want to be okay and satisfied with my life, and that is my big hurdle in life. So those are that's my like
I like
off
that. That's the soft tissue.
paper one.
That's the soft
Yeah.
tissue.
But that's who I am, and I'm
Yeah.
delighted to be with your crew. I think
Yeah.
our Venn diagrams do overlap, so I'm
So
so
much.
happy to be with you.
It's just so much. I'm just listening to you tick it off, and I'm like, these are big, big pillars of the work of my adult life also. Um, and, we were talking before recording, but there's a place for us in the world, the way that we were formed and how we function and what we are capable of, for sure. And there's also a downside to that. I'm laughing as you were saying, well, virtually every word that you just said, because I was recently talking to a group of friends. I mean, friends. I'm not talking like ancillary friends, we've done the thing. Like, we are deep in the bag. And I just casually mentioned to them, because I'm dating now. I am not remarried, but I am definitely like in a new relationship. And
My
guess
God, you're
what?
talking to me like I don't follow your every move with Tyler. Like, oh, you're
Yes,
dating someone, Jen?
that's
Like,
right.
I
Oh,
I
tell
know
us
this
what's his name?
relationship deeply.
Yeah,
Tyler Merritt, he's
yeah,
beautiful, beautiful.
yeah.
Well,
He
unless you
is.
tell me otherwise, then he's dead to me.
No, he is. I
Okay.
love that. That's the best. No, he's beautiful. But it's so interesting because, wherever you go, there you are. And so sometimes a new relationship doesn't just mean you are also a new person inside of it. You just have the same little things. And so I was telling my group of friends, I'm like, Tyler is telling me that I can get hyper focused on like and then what happened in your day and then what did he say and then what were you thinking and what were you doing, and then one little thing comes back here and I will talk about it. This is not a joke. I will talk about it, I'm going to say, for 60 seconds. 60 seconds, and usually right about the 60-second mark, this is what I'm telling friends. He's telling me that then I'll say something like, I'm talking too long. What am I blathering about? Like, who I am in the weeds. Like, anyway, it was fine. And they were all silent and they were like, you do that to us literally every time you ever tell us anything, which we have to drag out of you. And I'm like, I do. It's easier to be focused on other people. And that thing where we got to like peel back that curtain and be like, and then here's my stuff. I immediately feel like I'm taking up too much oxygen. Nobody wants to hear it. I'm blathering on too long about whatever the thing is. And I'm like, oh, this is too much sharing.
I
So
have wondered about that, Jen, so much because I'm the same way. Only in my adult friendships have I accessed that piece where I'm like, oh, wait, I am supposed to disclose and share because then they can reflect back to me. Like I never did that prior. And I'm wondering if it's like a deeper, because now I see it playing out in my relationship. And I think that I always thought that my job was to manage myself internally. That like anything that it's almost like weird and irresponsible and weak to have to like bring it out of yourself and say, I need help or feedback or whatever, that my job was just to internally be like, they put it in the input, out comes the final conclusion, and that's what I present to you. And that seems like it's strong, but actually recently I've been like, oh man, like I was in couples therapy and my therapist was, I'm very, very good at analyzing what is wrong. I'm like, not that, not that, not that. Nope, 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 nope. And she was like, great. What do you want? And I was
look,
like, well, that's
like,
a very aggressive question.
sure, it's rude. It's
But
not why you pay her.
it's so exactly. It's so vulnerable because it's invulnerable to say that is not acceptable to me. It is very vulnerable to say like I have looked and this is what I want or this is what I'm struggling with and like I don't know if it's reasonable. And I don't know if you're going to be able to give it. And I don't know if I sound crazy. Like I wonder if that's all connected. The like little bitty disclosures and the big disclosures about like that is a level of vulnerability and suggest a reciprocity with the people in our lives that is deeply uncomfortable.
It is. And I tell you what makes it even harder is that, like, I can hear this. I hear you saying it. I would say the exact same thing. That is not the way to live. That is a lonely way to live. That is a disconnected way to live. That makes people feel alienated from you. I kind of like know it. I know it. The problem is that we actually have the capacity to internally sort the thing out, draw a conclusion, power through, for soldier it alone. I have operated in my life how I think that you have in a lot of ways and in a lot of functions and roles, which is the steady Eddie. Like, I'll get us through, guys. Everybody get in the boat. I'll row us to shore. I'll figure it out because we do and we can. And
Excellent figure
so
outers. Yes,
that makes it hard.
it does.
Like it makes it hard that we actually can function in that isolated way and then wonder why at the end of the day it feels lonely in life. I'll be 50 this year. I'm still working this out. I'm still working this out. That vulnerability piece to me is my hurdle. What is yours?
I think, God, well, we only get one.
Yeah, fair. Pick one. Pick one.
Um, God, I have so many. I mean, maybe they do all coalesce around the vulnerability piece of it because they all kind of intersect at the heart of that. I mean, I think the catch 22 of the self-efficacy that we have, which is like anything that happens, I can handle it. I will tackle this. You get behind me. I will protect you from it. Is that is a beautiful thing. And I think I sometimes wonder if it really is inside of us or if it is a capacity that is so praised by the world that that muscle would just got bigger and bigger and bigger.
You're right. It is
Whereas
rewarded.
it's so rewarded. It's so
Yeah.
rewarded. And I think the reliance on that becomes this like very broad stroke, which is like, I know how I know what's happening here. And I think just recently I have become aware that I don't actually always know what's happening, that I draw conclusions
Yeah, I do too.
and that sometimes those conclusions, when untested, and they're very often untested, it's that same thing of like, oh, let's stop talking about this, or I already know what this is. I'm operating based on what I know as if it were truth. And what I know is often not true in my most intimate relationships. And that I miss by not sharing, by not saying, even though it feels very annoying to have to be almost patronizing and obnoxious to have to be like, when you do this, I feel this. Like I'm allergic to all of that. But you get information because sometimes it's like, that's not at all what's happening. And if you are driving your little rowboat based on the information you have in your head, then you might be going the wrong place. You're going to get there because you're Jen Hatmaker and an Enneagram 3 who knows how to get there. But like, are you going to arrive at the right place?
Hmm.
Sometimes not.
It's so true. God, I have taken whole journeys around the world in my what I am in my assumptions without fact checking the thing. I've written a whole story and published it. It's like in ink. It's on a shelf and chased it wrongly. It's shocking because I feel like I knew, but you're right that awkward bit about doing that thing, that connective tissue bit.
But then, because
Sometimes,
then we're really just having a relationship with ourselves. That's what I realized.
yeah, and
I
that's
am
kind of
having entire relationships with other
yeah,
people, but with myself because
yeah,
I am not pressure testing any of my stuff. And like in real tangible ways, like where I'll be like, why don't you, like in my marriage, why don't you do X? It must mean that you don't care about it. I've decided you don't care about it, which leads to my resentment, which leads to me knowing I'm all on my own. But really, like when I share it, it's like, oh no, I'm not doing that thing that I care very deeply about because I am reading from you that you are not interested in my participation about that thing. And so we're each in our little corners, having decided what that thing means and just going farther and farther away from each other. And it's scary how astray that can lead you. But with certainty, you are certain that that is what that thing means.
Yeah. And then like taking that assumption of their motivation. That's where the rubber really leaves the road. Because then I start assigning malintent and I began to attach new ideas to that thing that I invented, and making suppositions and predictions. And yeah, I mean, that can really snowball and that can grow into a runaway, like downhill spiral. So um, I'm with you, like noticing. And also, I don't know how you feel about this, man, but in addition to also operating so often like a one man band, I'm conflict averse. And so, I mean, let's just add that into the mix. Like, I don't care for these hard conversations. And so maybe we just won't have it. And I'll
It's
just,
what is that? Like, I feel like someone would look at you and be like, she's a badass. Like, I feel like people probably think that I'll just go in some place and just raise hell and that I'm not going to take anything. But that's not it. I have to work twice as hard because I am going to get what I want, but I'm going to have to manage every single person's potential reaction to that thing in my process of getting to the place where I am. I almost wish I would just go snowball into things. How can you be so what have you figured out about that? About how you can be both I'm gonna get what I want and like, am I okay? Does everyone still loves me, right? Everything's fine. No one's mad at even one tiny bit.
this is the underbelly of being Enneagram threes, like you and I are. Like this is the hidden like trap door, which is an over prioritization of how people feel about us. Now, in its altruistic version, like when we've shined up the penny to present, it's because we care about other people's feelings. That's the better version of it, which has a lot of truth in it. We do, uh, like in a way that could be debilitating, frankly. But that's the better version of it. But right next, adjacent to that is if I hurt your feelings, or if this confrontation creates whatever it does, how will then you feel about me? What does that mean to my reputation in your brain and in your little ecosystem, wherever I attach to it? And so it's not as nice as it sounds.
Because it's all management. We're managing everything. We are not actually caring about the people's feelings. We are managing their feelings about us in the process of managing to get to our goal.
That's the
And
truest thing. Gross.
but but it is a beautiful thing because we're also able, we are not, I'll tell you what, we're not overwhelmed. I mean, we are overwhelmed, but we're not too overwhelmed to go rushing towards the thing, which we need people like that. We need people like us who are like, I see that mountain. Let's go. Let's go. And
It is my favorite thing about the way that we are wired.
yes,
I'm not very risk averse in terms of that, in terms of the mountain. Like big dreams for myself, other people, like the world. As long when it's externalized, I find that an easier climb. It's that more interpersonal, inward. A lot of ink's been spilled here, but it's all true. That's why people keep talking about it. I do sometimes look sideways at my friends who live out of their heart zone and like couldn't possibly go 1 minute without having a meaningful and important conversation that needs to be had. I'm like, what's it like there for you in your little earth? I have, I mean, I have kept, I have stayed in relationships, not just interpersonal relationships, but also business relationships, work relationships, partnership relationships. 10 years past their prime. 10 years. That's how much I don't want to feel disloyal or hurt someone's feelings or be disruptive in their work, or feel like I'm ungrateful for what it is that we did build together or that we did create together. I mean, this is why my therapist will just never not have a job,
Right. It,
you
it
know?
it is great job security for those people, and God love them. They deserve it. But yes, it's this thing of for for people like us, the trick is just because you can make it work doesn't mean it's working. And how do you and viewing stopping something as not necessarily failure. That sometimes laying something down is the most productive thing you can do and the kindest thing you can do. And and I very rarely stop and like in the flow chart of things. I just think, what's the next step? How does this keep going? How can we problem solve around it? Instead of like those people who are the heart people and take a T and they're like, should this thing keep going?
That's right.
It
Does
never
this feel
occurs to
good
me.
in my body? Like, are we still in alignment in a way that really serves everybody? Like, so yeah, 100% same. I'm 5 steps ahead of whatever I'm on. It's just like you. And so that doesn't give a lot of margin for evaluation, or even honesty, to be frank. It's kind of
And
a machine.
it goes back to the therapy session. What do you want? It's not, yes, we can do it, but the reason why we opt more towards the flow chart of what's the next step is it's way easier for us to figure out what the next step is than to do the harder work and the more vulnerable work of being like, do I want this thing?
Mm, times a million. Times a million. Can I ask you a question? Can you talk a little bit about your decision to sort of choose sobriety? Is that something you could talk about? Like, what made you go, what led to that? And what was the internal dialogue for you around that? Like, even leading up to it and for how long? And then I'd love to hear like how that has felt to you, what that's meant to you in the last 4 years. What do you notice from this? It's a pretty big choice.
It's a pretty big choice. I love that you asked that because I feel like um, often choosing not, well, choosing not to drink is a very radical choice in our culture because it's like you need an excuse not to because it's so weird and makes everyone so uncomfortable and um or at least that's a perception is that that's the case. And so I feel like so it's almost like you need to be like, well, I had 3 DUIs and I was locked up and I almost lost my kids for people to be like, all right, that's fine. You cannot drink. You sound like one of those. Um, but for me, the honest answer is I was found myself so much of my mental space was during that time was, am I drinking too much? Like, do I would wake up in the morning and I would count the glasses of wine I had the night before, and I'd be like, okay, three, okay, all right, two, three, okay, four, okay. And I would decide whether that was okay and still normal. I kept trying to figure out if I had a problem, and it was eating up so much of my mental space that and worry and concern about, well, if I needed to stop, would I be able to? Like what would happen? Like, how would I ever relax? How would I ever be able to breathe at that? Because, thousand, we're both 1,000 miles an hour. It was like the one lever I could pull to be like, I am coming off the sprint. Um, and so really the math came down to me of th so much of my mental space is trying to figure out, is plagued with worry about, do I have a problem? And when will it tip to, yes, I do, that I needed to unburden myself from that, like from the whole analysis. Like I can't do that anymore. Like I don't choose that. So it was less about the outer issues and more about like I was drinking to manage a life that was so intense, except that in doing that, it was like to keep going. I can't keep going with this life unless at this pace, unless I can also do this thing that helps me through it. But then it reached this point where it was like this thing I'm doing to keep my life manageable is becoming such an unmanageable piece of my life that that's got to go. And so that almost like it sucked. It sucked, especially that like first 6 months sucked a lot
Did it?
because it did actually, because it's muscle memory. It's
Sure.
like, how do you even cook without a glass of
It's a
wine?
companion to
How,
so many things.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly. But also the relief of not thinking about it. It was like handing me the gift of like, you never have to think about this again, which is ironic because you'd think people who weren't drinking had to think about it all the time. But at least in my space, I was like, oh, thank God I don't have to think about my drinking anymore. And so that was the blessing. The kick in the shorts is that when you say like, what did you notice? The kick in the shorts is I started noticing a lot of things that I didn't notice
Oh,
before.
yeah.
And
Yeah. You're wide awake in your life.
yes, and like when
Yeah.
you don't take the edge off, I was just all edge all the time. And that is a challenge. But it also, I think, has led to some things that when you can't smooth things over and you have to look at them, you have to look at them. So that's the good news and the bad news. So I think that has led to me being forced to look at some things that weren't working, but felt like where they were working well enough when I didn't have to look at them as directly.
How did you notice sobriety affecting your relationships, your marriage, I mean, of course, Glennon and Abby are sober. So
Yes.
that was probably a comfy, cozy home
Oh, so
for
comfy. And
sobriety. Yeah.
that I think is one of the key pieces why we think when we're giving up alcohol, we're giving up fun. And that's with good reason. It's like fully marketed. I mean, growing up, that's what, yeah, anything that is fun also includes alcohol. Like I wasn't aware of anything that wasn't fun. So you think, well, goodbye fun for the rest of my life. But when I had the enormous blessing of being so close to Abby and Glennon's life and seeing that they were the most fun people with the most delightful, satisfying life of anyone else I know. And none of that included alcohol. And so it kind of like broke that framework for me that I knew it was possible. And I'm not quite sure I would have elected it without that because I wouldn't have wanted whatever I thought was the alternative to that. So, but my relationship with them was great. I wonder, it was kind of the perfect, it's hard for me to isolate like what not drinking anymore did because it was kind of it all coincided. So I stopped drinking October 30, 19. Um, so I just, thank baby Jesus, had several months under my belt by the time the pandemic came. Because had that not, that was like a God thing because I would not have stopped if I was in pandemic. It would have been like too much. Um, and I think I might have gone off the rails in pandemic had that not happened. But so it was everything kind of coincided with being in early sobriety, um, having Untamed was coming came out March 2020. And then we had to like figure out that entire world, and that felt like there was like this precious baby that was under threat, and that almost destroyed me too because I was just like determined to figure out a way to make that work. Um, and of course, my kids' school, they're little tiny people trying to look at the screen, and that was a disaster. And there we have neurodiversity issues, and so it was like, forget it. And then they got their diagnoses at that very same time too. So it was almost this like of all the things all at once. Um, and I think that kind of stress of it all the time without this ability to kind of opt out um, by getting toasty was so it's hard for me to isolate which one is which, but I think that presented a lot of challenges in my marriage because it's very easy for me to be like, everything's wrong and I'm carrying all of this and I'm having to deal with all of this. And also, that is a much more comfortable place for me to be than like, I am deeply scared and deeply sad and grieved by all of these things. And so I obviously went with the former. And that was a very hard period for us. And we have been working really hard, thank God, and are in a really good place right now. Um, but I think all of that stress and my reaction to it, my like knee-jerk place I go, and then his response to that, we just became very polarized in those times. And so, you know, the the kind of more more feelings I had, more conflict I brought, the quieter he became. And that was his way of stabilizing us. But I viewed his quiet as a lack of care.
Sure. Like a withdrawing.
Yes. And
Yeah.
so I became more. And so we just became so distant in that and only recently have realized that we were both trying so hard to save our relationship, and we were each doing it in a way that pushed the other completely away.
Yeah. In a
Um,
reactive way.
in a reactive way. Exactly. The more I went left, he went right. The more he went right, I said that is evidence that of this thing I've decided it is. And and so we have come back to center on that, which is like an act of God. It feels like a miracle to be like, that's what you were doing? This is what I was doing.
Oh my
Like,
God, it's so like familiar to hear you talk about that. It's so funny because for me, and of course I'm looking backward at marriage at my marriage that I had. And so I am I'm kind of the lead horse in my work and in my career and just in some of these other areas where I feel like this degree of, I don't know, competency. I'm not really sure what it is. But in my marriage, I filled the role and the practices and the responses that your husband did. Like I was married to a high up here, like a high responder to, and you are these are not a good comparison because there was a lot of just tons of unresolved trauma baked into that sauce too, which it came out crazy and sideways. But I would get quieter and quieter and quieter and quieter. And at the time, because I like to tell myself my own story. And to your earlier point, I would rather than reaching out saying, can you help me understand this response? And how do I just made an assumption about it and then operated out of kind of half story. And now I understand post mortem when the only like sane thing to do after the dissolution of a 26-year marriage, even when it went up in like flames, like wild flames that you would be allowed to assign a certain story to. And
Yes.
people will let you do it and
Oh,
they will
and
be
they want to
mostly
hear
right.
it. In fact, they want
Yeah.
to hear that version of the story.
Do
When you
they?
make it more nuanced, they're like, can we go with the one where he was just a
That's right.
big asshole and that
That's
can be
right.
the end of the story? Yeah.
Way tidier. And I preferred it there for a minute, for sure. I loved it. It was my favorite story. But the truer thing is to look inward and go, what did I bring here? And so it's been since my divorce that I have really began to understand exactly what it must feel like, which to have a partner who is going quieter the louder you're banging the drum. And you're banging the drum for a reason. There's a reason. And that your partner who is attempting to set the equilibrium right goes down and down and down and down until I am trying and learning what that must have felt like. That left you feeling really lonely in your fear, in the chaos, in whatever was going sideways, which at the time was everything for you and in mine as well. And so that is part of my work right now. I'm doing the work that your husband's doing, which is engage, like engage. That is it. That engagement actually would probably bring it more like this.
Exactly. And
Yeah,
that is, oh God, it's so wild to hear you say that because they're both there. No one is right or wrong in that. Like we are like a relationship has to have some equilibrium. And so the farther you go this way, the more the other person has to go this way. And what I have learned is that no one wants to be in those places.
that's right.
We
No
just,
one's winning.
no one's winning, even though it often looks like the loudest person wants to be there, or else why would they keep being so obnoxiously loud? Um, and that the quiet person wants to be quiet. And these are like very broad overgeneralizations for a lot of things. But like we feel like we have to go there to keep the seesaw from losing, from just going off the rails. But I also just want to say that what I have learned is how lonely it is to be where you were, because I know that from my husband to be so like where he was in the position you were in and what looks like going dead, which enraged me because I'm like, you're going dead and I need you to live and be here with me. Like that you are actually having to suppress so much of yourself. And it looks like you're doing nothing, but you are actually sacrificing and pushing down all of these feelings that you have, all of who you are, all that you were meant to bring out to the relationship in order to keep the relationship steady as you view it. And that is a deeply lonely place to be. And to whereas I would be like, you see me struggling and you don't care enough to come out here and meet me here. I'm sure the other side felt like you see me going dead and you're not even coming in to get me. You
Yes,
don't need
exactly.
an alive me here.
That's right. It's your part is so overwhelming and it's so all-encompassing and it is so loud and reactive. There's no more room. Neither, you are so right that you sound like a person who's been in therapy. Like this is all the stuff I learned in therapy too. I just did it on my side of it and went, okay, that's not a winning scenario for it. Even though you're right, it feels like there might be a winner and loser in it. There's not. Those are two like really lonely corners to be in. And so it's work. It is really work to find that other style of communication. And I've noticed that I still have those tendencies. So I am with a different person who has a different style of everything, communication, conflict resolution, all of it, like a completely different type of human. And yet here I am. And I'm like, oh, when you don't say the words, the other person just can't know them. That's just not something they just can't know them. It just by looking at your face and being like, I sense what you need and mean. That is how it works. The words carry the thing. And so, so easy here. It's so easy to be in relationships with other people.
It is,
Mhm.
it's just the breeziest thing I've
It's
ever been
it's
involved with.
relaxing. It's relaxing.
That when you talk about the different sides and like nobody wants to be there, it's like makes me think of when you're saying about the stories we tell about ourselves, because those those go together so much. Like my husband's story, I'm sure about me during that time is she's a control freak. It doesn't ma- it's gonna end up being what she's decided anyway. So what's the point in contributing of my thoughts about it? I'm sure it's like she wants it the way she wants it, whatever. And I'm sure I contributed to a lot of that. I'm sure I disregarded a lot of the suggestions he made. I'm sure there was like he was basing that on data, I'm sure. And also, I would have said, yes, I know how it needs to be done. I know how to get it done, and I'm going to do it. But what I have recently realized is that, like, I actually have a hunch that many people who either view themselves or are viewed in their relationships as control freaks, actually what they want the most is to not be in control of everything. That they feel like they have to be in control of everything because that is the way that they show their love is by taking care of things. But what they want more than anything else is for someone to step up and be like, I got this. I got you. You don't have to be in control of this. And that then the seesaw, then that person who's always uptight and in control and obstinate because the other person is carrying the ball can be other things.
That's good. That's so good. And it's really important to hear. My brain right now is thinking about how many people are listening to this and have that relational dynamic inside their partnership or marriage, either way, like whichever role they occupy. And it's like a light bulb. Like it isn't just because it is my way or the highway and I will steamroll over everybody that lives in this home. And that's not it. And you know what, Amanda, it's so funny because I can now look back with the humility of 4 years being 4 years out of sort of the disintegration of my relationship. And I can honestly say, I see that. I see the places that I phoned in some of the labor, the heavy labor. big decisions, huge financial pieces of our shared life, which is massive. I have 5 kids. Like, that is so much work. It is so many details. We had so many moving parts, businesses, LLCs, nonprofits, the children, and I was like, this was me. Hope it's going okay. Hope that's fine. I don't know what any of it is. I don't know how to do taxes. I don't know what our mortgage is. I don't know any of it, but like, I don't want to know. That is lame. And that was a lot of labor that should have been shared. And of course, that would create resentment and more control. But like, had I come in at any moment and said, hey, I'm going to take this, and this right off your plate. I'm going to learn it. I'm going to figure it out, and I'm going to see it through. And you can take that like right off your mental load. I'll never know. I never gave it a chance. I never had that self-awareness. I never had that level of, I wasn't willing to really listen because I just saw reaction and then assigned meaning to it and then put myself on the victim side of things. So it's
And
easy.
it's a cycle. Like you could,
Yeah.
had you
Yeah.
not
Then
been
it
in that
fulfilled,
place.
fulfilled
Exactly.
itself.
I
Yeah.
mean, you have to, that's why it's such a vicious cycle because you get so far along on it. There is no going back because you've already felt belittled and diminished and that what you say doesn't matter, that there comes a point in time where there is no going back in and saying, I've got this. It like has, it really, the snowball's too big then. And so, and we both contribute to it, It's just, which is why it's really cool that you're noticing it now because it's a lot easier to reshape, a little snowball you can hold in your hand.
That's right. It's just a baby. It's a
It's
baby.
just a wee
And
bitty bitty baby
it's just a
snowball.
teeny little baby snowball and I can catch it by the tail, usually the same
Yep.
day, which for me is progress.
Yes.
Like,
Oh my God, the same day.
yeah.
That's
And
varsity.
I'm not in the same moment yet. I sometimes need an hour or to the
You
end
don't
of the
want to be one
day.
of those heart people that can just do it immediately. That's too
That's right. No,
much.
no, no, no. That's way too evolved. Like, no, no, thank you. But because usually by the end of the day, I could be like, I'd like to revisit something that I said earlier. I think what I said was, but what I was meaning was, anyway, we can learn. We're not too old. Like, it's not too late for us to really like wrangle our own little hearts and minds. Um, okay, I just want to ask you one last question before I let you go, because I I just found it so profound and so lovely and so very her in a way that I don't even know how to describe. But your episode with Liz, where you wrote the love letter, well, love wrote the letter to you. That's really more right. I mean, I was just like on the edge of my seat listening to every second of it, of course. And first of all, I don't know how Liz gets to be like that. I don't know how a person is the way that she is, that how the thoughts like just come out of her mouth. I know she didn't script it. She's just responding to the thing, but I'm like, how do you do that? Anyway, whatever. She's just her own special thing in the
It
world.
can't be known. It can't be known about
It
her.
can't be known. It just can't be known. It just can only be observed or in your case, experienced. And so just this is, I mean, obviously this could be 14 hours of their own episodes, but if you could just talk for one moment about that practice, that exercise, what she made you do,
She
how
made
that
me do it. It
felt.
was terrible.
She really
No,
did. No,
she
she
did
really
make me
did.
do it.
And you were last to the table too. Like
I was.
a week late at that. I mean, that would have been me. That would have been me. Of course, that would have been me. So,
Oh gosh. Okay, yes. I want to tell the good people about this because to some people this will seem like going to a spa, and for some people it will seem like torture. But this, Liz Gilbert has been her most long-standing spiritual practice is every morning she writes down, love, what would you have me know today? And she hears from love. She calls she calls it love, she calls it God, she calls it, and she hears what she needs to know that day. Um, and if you're anything like me, your response might be, but aren't you just writing to it's you though writing. It's you. That's what's happening there. You're calling it something different, but you write the question and then you write the answer. And so she had Abby do it and she had Glennon do it. And they had these gorgeous letters that came back to them. And then she asked me to do it. And I was like, okay. And so I spent several weeks just like begging love. Wherever you are, love, is there a way that you could not disappoint Liz Gilbert? That would be great. I mean, that's just what I was trying to get at. I didn't really expect much out of this, but I noticed, and this is what was um, interesting to me, and what actually ended up really being profound to me was that I kept having ideas from my brain about what would make a good letter. Like I had a note section on my phone, and I'd be like, oh, this would be a good letter from love. I should let love know
When I
about this
write
letter.
this back to myself, I'll be sure to remember
Exactly.
this. Uh-huh.
Maybe I can drop a note to love and suggest this as a topic
I've got some
because
show notes for you, love. Yes.
exactly,
Yes.
exactly. God, I would
Yeah.
suggest that this be the topic of your letter,
I'm
of to
dying.
your
This
message to
is
me.
so how I am. Okay.
And
Hmm.
I couldn't turn my brain off. I could feel it. I could feel like when I sat down, I was like, okay, this is I I couldn't eliminate the wanting my letter to be good from wanting just to receive whatever message it was. And that I feel like is an analogy for my entire life. Like,
I as well. I'm just adopting it.
right.
Hmm.
I want it to this is an opportunity to have an impressive good letter. I want how can I let go of what it would look like to be for have it be good versus what would it take to have it be real? And good and real for me have often been very different in my life. And so I just like said a prayer and like sat down and I had to give myself permission. I had to be like, if this letter sucks and it will embarrass you, you don't have to send it in.
Great. You gave
We
yourself an
can
escape
just,
hatch.
yes.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's not like you have to analyze every word that comes out of this and you're going to be embarrassed by it. And you can throw it directly in the garbage and then you can have your brain write one and just try to make it reverse engineered to make it sound like it was love talking. But it didn't, it, it came out and I knew it was not actually from me and my brain because it wasn't something that I thought was good or impressive. And that was amazing because I was like, this is not what I would have written. This is not what I would have prepared. And what came out was this idea of this is how I knew it was definitely not me because it was a very long football analogy. And it was about like how my brain was the only player I was letting on the field. And because my brain was the most reliable player on my team to help me win, and about how maybe life could look if other players got to come. Like, oh, there was satisfiability was one of the players. Silliness, all these other things that are part of me, but that I don't let show up until I'm sure that brain has already like locked down the win. Then they can come in and like do their little cute thing, but I'm not going to rely on them as if they are things that can be
Legitimate
relied on.
players. Yep.
Exactly. Exactly. And that felt real to me. It was a lot about how the irony of even having it be a game because like
Like, what are
of the
you
key
going around talking about football? You are
right.
not. It's absurd. Like,
Exactly.
even the structure of the metaphor was clearly sent from somewhere else.
Exactly. Brain was like, we do not co-sign.
That's
But
right.
it
Yeah,
was the part that came out about like the keeping of the score. It was like there is no score to any of this. You're the only one keeping score. Like it is not, you are so fixated on the score of this life, but there is no score except the one in your head that you are exhausting yourself to death trying to keep a score and figure out where you've won and figure out where other people have disappointed you and slighted you and not met your expectations. But that is a fiction. The score is a fiction. We're not being scored, which makes it kind of silly to be basing your whole life on a made up score that only you are keeping.
it does. It's like, it's so powerful that it like lodges right in my heart. Like, it's not even a scoreboard. Like, what are we doing? Like, it's a lot of energy. It's a lot of anxiety. It's a lot of stress. And what scares me when I hear that a little is, whoa, because I run that game. I QB my own life hard. And what am I missing? That's what I think. What could a day be? Liz said something in that interview. I'm going to get this a little bit wrong. I'm remembering it, but she was like, said how sometimes are often like in a real season of like chaos and motion and production and whatever, that when she asked love, because one thing she said is sometimes you can ask love what to do, not just what to know. And she says, love usually said, get some water and lay down. And I'm like, did love say that? Is that a real message? Lovely. The wisdom is profound.
Because, but think the reason that's so profound about get some water is like the permission and the audacity to think that you are worthy of spending your day or even an hour of your day laying down. Like it isn't the water, it's the permission. And I think that is why we keep a score to prove to ourselves that we are worthy, to prove to ourselves that we are are worthy of the life that we're having. Because if not, we just have to call ourselves worthy. We just have to accept that that is true. And I think about oh God, who was the writer Bronnie Ware, who she was she was a nurse, a hospice nurse, and she's the one who took all of those interviews of her patients who were
Oh
dying,
yeah.
and she wrote that the five.
I've had her on the show.
Oh my gosh, of course you
Yeah.
have.
Yeah.
Of course you have. But
Such a, I
it's
know.
brilliant.
I have goosebumps
Brilliant.
just remembering it.
Yes.
Yes.
And her one of the top five regrets that people have are I wish I had let myself be happier. And that is crazy to me because it's not, I wish my life had been happier. I wish I would have had happier things. It's, I wish I would have
Let
let
myself.
myself be happier because it's just a permission.
That's it.
It's just a
It,
claiming of the happiness that is already
well,
there.
it's already here. It's already
It's already
here.
there.
I cannot throw a rock and not hit it. So that's what it is. It's the permission. and the acceptance of the invitation. And for me, where the like Liz brand of magic like makes it all electrifying is uplinking the whole mechanism to the idea of love. Like, this is loving. This is what love would have. This is what love has to offer. This is what love wants for us. Like, this is love's whole plan for the whole thing. It isn't the scoreboard. Like, there isn't even one. There isn't even one, turns out. It's the water and the nap and the let yourself be happy. It's so beautiful that I'm like writing notes as you're talking, like the things that are jogging. But I was so proud of you for going into that exercise with your little heart open, turned out. When you said you know it was not from your brain because it didn't feel impressive, that zinged my head just now. I'm putting that as something else I have in my life, but I just had a enormous light bulb went on over my head just now that I've never thought of. So thank you for saying that. But I think that I feel so lucky to be getting to do whatever it is that you and I do. What is life? At the same time as you. And that we get to love our little people and each other and the women right now together, like learning together, like turning the mirror inward together. There's no other way. Wish there was. I would know it if there was.
Oh, yeah, I would be doing that instead if there were.
No, I would choose that. So it didn't work. So, and I just feel like profoundly grateful for who you are in the world. And you have such a really special wisdom that I mean, your brain is a part of it because your brain is smart, but for me, it's all heart. And when I hear you talk, when I hear you make observations, when I hear you draw conclusions, and when I hear you sort of self-examine, and I'm just like, whatever that sentence was, it is true. It is true and it is honest and it is good. And I just think that's what you bring to the world. And I love it. I don't know if you went willingly into into your podcast, or if did Glennon make you do it? And Abby, who can deny them? I mean, I couldn't.
Apparently not me, but
apparently not you.
I will do anything for love, but I will not do that. And then they
turns
said
out,
you sure will. And turns out I would. But
they're like, here's your microphone.
I love it. I love it.
I mean, what an offering to the world at the time when the world needed it. And now it has a life of its own. Your community, all of it. But I'm glad that they bullied you and that you couldn't resist.
I am glad too. I'm glad I'm so codependent that I was like, okay. Jen Hatmaker, you are a joy and a light in this world. And I am very thankful to be on the planet at the same time. I am so grateful. I just feel amazed at what every single person is doing every day in life. Like, it is so hard. Everyone is carrying so much, and we only see a fraction of it. And people are just unbelievable. And I just feel
agree.
so proud of everyone.
I do too. My friend Sarah Bessie always says it's so hard to be a person. And I'm like, and we all have to do it. Every one of us has to just go be a person like every day of their lives. And so what a miracle. Okay, this is truly it. This is truly it. Because then you have to go. Last question. It could be, you answer it however you want. Everybody gets to answer it. What is saving your life right now? It could be like whatever. It could be real. It could be dumb. It could anything in between.
I feel like what is saving my life is that, honestly, I think I think God was like, how are we going to get this girl to do some self-analysis and to be vulnerable and the important stuff like that. And then God was like, I know, we'll trick her into thinking it's a work to-do list. And that is what happened with the podcast because they were like, you're doing this podcast. So I had to, like, in preparation for that, put on my to-do list things like figure out what's going on with yourself here. And because it was work, I took it seriously. And then it was like an amazing master plan because then I could taste it. Like it's kind of like I feel like we're so overworked and so overscheduled and we have too much to do. And so we're like stuffed. Like we're stuffed to the brim. And then someone's like, do you want joy and fun and friendship and vulnerability and connection? And we're like, no, because we're already stuffed. It just feels like more things we're consuming. It's just too much. I'm already full. What the hell would I do with that? But then doing this stuff on the pod, it gave me the taste of like what it feels like and how it's good. It's good and it doesn't taste the same as the other stuff we're filling ourselves with. And so I feel like what's saving me right now is that little bit of craving for more human, less machine. And it's just a little, but it's just enough.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Just enough.
Yeah. That's about how much I have too.
Yeah.
It occupies like one little zip code in my entire ecosystem, but I like it. It's there.
It's a revolution. I'll
It
take
raises
it.
its little hand like, what if we did this for no reason at all? I'm like, woo!
You're crazy. All right.
Crazy. Okay, that's it.
All right.
I love you.
I love you
Love
so
you,
much,
love you, love you.
Hatmaker.
Thanks for
All
being
right.
here. All right, guys. It's a zillion things in there. A zillion things I didn't even get to. I had, oh, well, there's just too much there. And so I hope that was encouraging to you in the same way that it was to me. That this is the work. This is the, what a notion to walk away from even just something as simple as a podcast episode and go, no one's keeping score, man. That's not even, no one's keeping score. What if that was something we believed? Because if we believed that there wasn't even a scoreboard, what would that change? It's just such a beautiful, for a worker and a doer like me, this is like, it's like a glass of water on a hot day. So thank you, Amanda. I surely do love you. And I just respect you and admire you so much. And I'm so glad you were on the show today. You guys, we have more to come in this amazing series. It's kind of like this, right? Like what and who can help us kind of get into our bodies, get into our bones, push aside all it is that we do, all the ways that we hustle, all the things that we worry about, all the things that we obsess about. And what if we were able to shove those to the side of the room for a while and see what was left? See who we are in the quiet, see what we deserve just because we were born. See the value and the worth that we carry simply because everyone does, right? That's what this series is about. So come back next week. If you haven't already subscribed, do it. Wherever you listen to your podcast, just hit that subscribe button and you'll never miss any more. And you're not going to want to miss any in this series, I promise you. So thank you for being here, guys. We sure love you. So on behalf of Laura and her team over at Four Eyes and Amanda and I, it's our pleasure. It's our pleasure to make this show for you. And we love it so much. And we love you. See you next week.